We all love a good story of humanity at its best, don't we? Well, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment in the boxes below. Enjoy the video.
Hero teens risk their lives to save 90-year-old from blazing home. Teenagers get a bad rap, don't they? We make jokes about them and take the mickey out of their predictable and infuriating ways. We all know, don't we, that teenagers think they know everything, for example? And how often do we hear about teenagers on the news, and how often is it about something good they've done? Rarely. Well, as human beings, we tend to feast on bad news. Did you know that numerous times people have tried to create newspapers that focus on good news, and they've always seemed to fail? Nobody buys them. Maybe that's why we might get a bit of a skewed picture of today's young people. And maybe, as these 4 hero teens seem to indicate, it's not entirely fair. Fortunately, a peculiarity of the internet seems to be that people do like positive stories. Who knows why that is, but heartwarming, encouraging and hopeful stories sure do get shared a lot, and so they should. The world can be a pretty dark and scary place. Goodness knows we all need a bit of positivity. So, here is your daily dose. A group of teenage boys, all between 14 and 17, Dylan Wick, Seth Bird, Nick Bird and Wyatt Hall, didn't set out to be heroes. Instead, they were planning an ordinary evening hanging out at Hall's house in Sepulpa outside Tulsa. These kids, all football players, were obviously raised right. They know to check in on their neighbours. They were first alerted to something being wrong by the smell of smoke. Going to check out what was going on, they quickly realised it was serious, as visible flames could be seen inside 90-year-old Catherine Ritchie's house. Thinking and acting quickly, 2 of the boys broke into the house while the other 2 called 911. Ritchie had realised that she was in trouble, but was unable to get out of the house by herself. She had been aware of the fire and tried to make her way out, but she became overcome by the smoke and was unable to see her way through the thick black smoke, and she was trapped. By the time the boys found her, she was on the floor in the hall, overcome by the smoke. The hero teens then picked up Ritchie and carried her out to safety. Ritchie's daughter Missy wrote about the event on her blog. "Thank you for being the kind of young men who thought about another person above yourselves. Thank you for staying safe yourselves as well. Thank you to your parents who obviously raised you in such a way that led you to making life-saving and heroic decisions on behalf of someone else." You said it, Missy, just what we were thinking. Now, we could never recommend rushing into a burning house. I think the fire department have had too much experience of tragedy being doubled when people act in desperation with no real knowledge of the kind of danger they were getting themselves into. But this really says something wonderful about our nature as human beings. We all have the capacity for such compassion and selflessness. But I'm sure we don't always listen to our nature. That's the beautiful thing about this story. These boys didn't have to think. They didn't have a discussion or weigh up the pros and cons of the rescue. They just saw what they had to do and went ahead and did it. It's pretty certain that if these guys hadn't acted quickly, Catherine Ritchie would have lost her life that night. Ritchie is herself loved and valued in the community, and we are so glad that she hasn't left us yet. She's still very active, volunteering in charities like the Salvation Army, the Boys and Girls Club, and was even delivering Meals on Wheels until recently. Wouldn't you think that at 90 she'd be the one having the Meals on Wheels delivered? Her granddaughter Jennifer said to CNN that she was shaken up by the fire, but she is tough, resilient and active, and isn't going to let it bring her down. Good for you, Miss Ritchie. But there was no doubt or second thought here, just crystal clear knowledge of what had to be done, and then getting on and doing it. Well done, boys. You are an inspiration to us all and an example. I hope my kids grow up with that same simple understanding. Love thy neighbour as thyself. Now then, When something like this happens, a simple act of selfless kindness, we should shout it from the rooftops. I mean, really, teenage boys going into a burning house and saving the life of an old lady. This is the kind of stuff we need as front page news sometimes, instead of the constant doom and gloom which paints a false picture of the world and just brings us down. Give somebody else a lift. Share this story with your friends and family, get these boys the credit they deserve, and encourage one another.
Isn't it wonderful that there are still some decent human beings out there in the world? And I hope that encourages you to be your best as well. Don't forget, sharing is caring. You know, this is what we do. So share it with your friends, click subscribe, and then click the little bell that appears and you'll get notifications each time we upload a fantastic new video like this one. All right, thanks for joining us. See you again soon.